The quiet countryside of Cambodia bespeaks little of the magnificent civilization which existed from the 9th until the 13th century. The Cambodians refer to themselves as Khmers. Others refer to them as Kambujas, sons of Kambu, a legendary ancestor. Kambu was the son of a union between a Brahmin prince and the Naga's daughter. The Naga was a seven-headed serpent who had the ability to transform himself into a human. Ethnically speaking, the Cambodians are a combination of several Southeast Asian races, which subsequently came under the cultural and religious influence of India. The Indian cults of Vishnu, Shiva, Indra, and later Buddha were the center of Cambodian life during the Angkor period, which was the peak of the Cambodian civilization. As a matter of fact, some of the kings of Cambodia thought themselves to be manifestations of these gods. Let us forget history for the moment and permit the eye of the camera to give us an impression of rural life in Cambodia. Most of Cambodia is rural, and these scenes are typical. One might easily believe that this young lady has the blood of the kings of Angkor in her veins. The Royal Cambodian Ballet welcomes us to Angkor with an art form as old as Angkor itself. The dancers bear gold and silver flowers to bid us welcome. This folk dance represents the sacrifice of a buffalo to the local genie. In this scarf dance, young girls use their scarves to cover their heads and to attract young men. This dance does honor to coconuts, which are one of the principal sources of Cambodia's agricultural wealth. This dance represents the young people of Cambodia catching fish in bamboo traps and becoming acquainted. The yaki is a form of dramatic art which includes songs and dances. This folk dance from near the Laotian border features a peculiar form of a mouth organ called the ken. The dancers address Indra. When gods and goddesses descend on earth with joy to dance all day, a goddess chaste must often flee an ardent god's embrace. O Indra, behold and see that we are dancing with joy eternally. Welcome to Angkor. The Khmer rulers, who considered themselves to be god kings, chose Angkor as their capital and remained there for nearly 600 years. They built temple after temple, one more sumptuous than the other. This is Takeo, which was started during the 11th century but never finished. Over 100 sanctuaries were built, covering an area in excess of 200 square miles. The dynasty was founded by King Jayavarman II, who ruled from 802 until 850. This is Mabon Occidental, which was started about 950. It was built on an island in the middle of an artificial lake. The 5 sanctuaries located at the top have a door open to the east and blind doors on the other 3 sides. The sanctuaries are decorated with images of Siva, Indra, and Skanda, god of the celestial armies. Prey Roop was started some 15 years after Maybone Occidental. It seems to be a larger reproduction of the older shrine. The lingam, or phallic fertility symbol, stands at the bottom of the staircase. The 5 sanctuaries at the top are beautifully decorated in plaster. In addition to the gods, they feature images of the wives of Brahma and Vishnu. This beautiful young lady is standing on the steps of Banti Srey, which is also known as the Temple of the Women. This exquisite small shrine is one of the most beautiful in the Angkor area. It was finished at the end of the 10th century by Jayavaram V. The sandstone carving is like filigree. Banti Srey is dedicated to Siva and Vishnu and is completely Indian in feeling, with the exception of the Cambodian-style domes on the sanctuaries. We are visiting the shrines in chronological order, and Banti Srey is the oldest we will visit. It is located about 18 miles from the center of Angkor. The central shrines have been built on a large common base, which is decorated with mythical creatures. The genie guarding the temples are half man and half ape. Some of the walls are decorated with apsaras, or heavenly dancers. We are going to visit 3 small sanctuaries from the period of Angkor Wat. They were built between the end of the 11th century and the early part of the 12th century. The Tamanan, like most of the temples of the Angkor area, was rediscovered by French archaeologists during the early part of the 20th century. It is thought to be dedicated to the Indian god Siva. Little or no reconstruction has taken place. Directly across the road stands Teo Sai Taboda, which has been treated more kindly by the 800 years which have passed since it was built. The sculpture and carving on the sandstone walls of both of these temples is remarkable. It is uncertain as to whether this temple is dedicated to Siva or Vishnu. Bantai Samray is some miles distant from Teo Sai and was built about 50 years later. The purpose of this temple is unknown, but it may have been an early Buddhist sanctuary. The interior is heavily decorated with Nagas, the 7-headed serpent, whose daughter, in her human form, was thought to be the mother of the first king of Angkor.
And my earthly remains are to be transported to the temple of Angkor, which I have commanded to be built to sanctify Vishnu, who I personified on earth, when the flames of the future fire sweet Devata, our spirits, will be reunited.
And thus King Suryavaram II, the God King, commanded Angkor Wat to be built as his mausoleum. After death, the earthly spirit of the king was thought to be reunited with the heavenly spirit of Vishnu, to whom the temple of Angkor was dedicated. Most of the shrines in the Angkor area face toward the east and the rising sun. But since Angkor Wat is a funeral temple, it faces toward the west and the setting sun. Neither photograph nor description can do justice to the magnitude and magnificence of this mid-12th century creation. apsaras, or heavenly dancers, smile benignly from the temple walls. The naga, or seven-headed serpent, is used extensively as decoration. Try to imagine the funeral procession of Suryavaram II climbing the steps of the colonnade, and then look back toward the outer walls. The intricate carvings on the walls of the colonnade represent the story of the Ramayana. We are now entering into the inner sanctuary of the shrine. Subsequent rulers converted the temple of Angkor Wat to the worship of Buddha. We look toward the jungle. The great temple of Angkor Wat is both an architectural and artistic wonder. It contains over 6 miles of border carving and countless statues. All of the work seems to blend together in perfect harmony. We descend, look back, and hope someday to return to Angkor Wat. Assam, with its crumbling gate adorned by the benign heads of Buddha, represents the beginning of the Buddhist era in Cambodia. The Khmer civilization declined starting in 1150 after the death of Suryavaram II, who was entombed in Angkor Wat, which was the crowning achievement of his reign. Jayavaram VII came to the throne in 1181. During the interval, the Khmer cities were pillaged by the Chams, who attacked from the east. Ta Sam is an impressive ruin which represents the beginning and the end of an important era in the history of Cambodia. Was once an island in the center of a great lake created by Jayavaram VII. This small shrine was dedicated to Avalokitesvara, who healed the sick and saved the faithful. It derives its name from the coiled serpent, who was called Niak Pian. Try to imagine this pool filled with holy water and the healer priest curing the sick if their faith was strong enough. The temple of Phra Khan, the sacred sword, the safeguard of Cambodia. The bridge across the moat is decorated with a huge naga supported by giants. Phra Khan is but one of the many shrines built by Jayavaram VII during a frenzy of temple building, which lasted from 1181 until his death in 1219. Phra Khan is dedicated to Buddha and was built about 1190. The roots and large trees which have invaded this temple may be symbolic of the decline of a civilization. Apsaras, or divine dancers, are used to decorate the lintels over the doors. All of the four entrances are similar in design and decoration. Sras Srang is a very ancient lake whose sides have been decorated with sandstone steps and nagas. The entrance to Bantikade is decorated with the four faces of Avalokitesvara, who was a favorite of Jayavaram VII. The temple is dedicated to Buddha. This is the entrance to Ta Prohm, invaded by almost 800 years of jungle growth. It was also built by Jayavaram VII near the end of the 12th century. The jungle and the ruins combine to create a solitude which transports one from reality. We approach the south gate or victory gate of Angkor Thom, the supreme and final architectural achievement of Jayavaram VII. The Great Gate is capped with the four heads of Avalokitesvara, the Buddhist healer. This impressive bridge over the now dried up moat celebrated the victory of the Khmers over the invading Chams. The Naga on the left is supported by the gods, and the Naga on the right is supported by demons. Jehoram VII built Angkor Thom as a fortress city and incorporated into it portions of an older city dating to the 10th century. The Elephant Wall is attributed to Jehoram VII, but the royal enclosure, decorated with Garudas, the sacred steed of Vishnu, is thought to have been built in the 11th century by Jehoram V. The pyramid of the Pimianaka is also accredited to Jehoram V. This lovely pool was thought to be located in the women's quarter. It is easy to visualize the king's wives and concubines relaxing along the edge of this languid pool. This is one of the gates to the women's enclosure. We pass from the terrace of the Tep Pranam to the shrine of the Pra Palali, where the quiet of the jungle shelters the benign countenance of Buddha. The Bayon was the last and most ambitious undertaking of Jehoram VII. It is located in the exact center of the city of Angkor Thom. The entrances are elaborately decorated with lions and nagas. The central sanctuary is a huge mass of stone decorated with countless heads of Buddha. His divine countenance looks in every direction. Perhaps the figures were carved to resemble Jehoram VII. This huge frieze depicts the battles between the Khmers and the Chams. As we continue toward the top, we find the lintels are decorated with dancing apsaras. The benign face of Buddha is everywhere. Jehoram VII died in 1219, leaving a country which was exhausted both financially and physically from building countless temples. The kings who succeeded him reigned in Angkor Thom for another 200 years, but the civilization had started to decline. The Thais invaded the land of the Khmers in the 14th century, and Angkor was abandoned. Thus, the living history of Angkor was ended. We pass through the northern gate of Angkor Thom into the quiet countryside and reflect on the inevitable decline of a civilization that was more interested in monuments than in men.